Welcome back to Dark History Style. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss another journey into history's darkest chapters. When people think about punishment during slavery, they often picture little more than chains and whips. The reality was far more horrifying. Across the Atlantic slave trade, an entire industry emerged to design, forge, and manufacture instruments whose only purpose was to dominate human beings. Blacksmiths, craftsmen, and merchants produced devices specifically intended to restrain, torture, humiliate, and strip away every trace of personal freedom. Iron masks that sealed a person's mouth, collars covered in long spikes, mechanical gags that forced jaws apart. Every one of these objects existed for a single reason: to turn a human life into property that could be controlled like livestock. Over the next several minutes, we'll examine 40 authentic artifacts preserved in museums throughout the United States, Brazil, and Africa. Every one of them tells a disturbing story of suffering. Some were created to leave permanent scars. Others were designed to crush hope itself. Several of these objects are so disturbing that they continue to shock museum visitors even today. Let's begin. Number 1. The Speculum Oris. Originally, the Speculum Oris had nothing to do with slavery. It was first created as a medical instrument, intended to help doctors treat patients whose jaws had become locked shut. But aboard slave ships, that medical tool became an instrument of coercion. Captains and ship surgeons used it on Africans who refused to eat during the Middle Passage. The metal device worked by forcing the jaws apart with a screw mechanism. Once the mouth was held open, food or liquid could be poured directly down the person's throat against their will. Its purpose was never compassion. Its purpose was profit. Every enslaved person represented money, and traffickers could not afford to lose valuable cargo before reaching port. Historical journals written by ship surgeons reveal that many captives intentionally stopped eating. At the time, doctors described the condition as fixed melancholy. Today we recognize it differently. It was overwhelming despair. People torn away from their families, languages, homes, and identities sometimes chose starvation rather than a lifetime of slavery across the ocean. The Speculum Oris existed to deny them even that final act of resistance. Using the device frequently shattered teeth and damaged the jaw. Several original examples survive today, including one preserved in the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. Perhaps the most disturbing part is what this object represents. Someone deliberately transformed a medical instrument created to preserve life into a tool used aboard slave ships to keep unwilling captives alive only long enough to be sold. The same invention designed to heal became a weapon of human trafficking. Number 2. The Iron-Pronged Collar. Few punishment devices symbolized hopelessness more than the iron runaway collar. These heavy collars surrounded the neck and carried several long iron spikes projecting outward in every direction. The abolitionist Theodore Weld documented the story of a young enslaved seamstress near Charleston who repeatedly attempted to escape. Each failed attempt brought another brutal whipping. Eventually, her owners chose a different punishment. They fastened one of these spiked collars around her neck. Running through forests became nearly impossible. The projecting spikes snagged branches, bushes, fences, and nearly every obstacle in her path. Even resting became torture. The collar prevented her from lying comfortably on the ground to sleep. But the cruelty did not end there. Her owners wanted to ensure that if she escaped again, she could always be identified. To accomplish this, they removed one of her healthy front teeth. Not because of disease. Not because of injury. Simply to create a permanent identifying feature for future runaway advertisements. The missing tooth became another mark of ownership. The collar restrained her body. The mutilated smile restrained her identity. Together they formed a system designed not only to capture a person, but to erase any possibility of disappearing into freedom. The horrifying part is that this was not hidden cruelty. It was documented openly by witnesses who considered these punishments ordinary enough to record in writing. The records remain today as chilling evidence of just how carefully calculated slavery had become. And these collars were only the beginning. The next instruments would leave marks that could never be removed. Number 3. The Branding Iron. Few objects captured the cruelty of slavery more clearly than the branding iron. The process was brutally simple. A solid piece of iron was placed into blazing coals until it glowed bright orange. Once it reached the proper temperature, it was pressed directly against human skin, burning permanent initials into the flesh. The purpose was exactly the same as branding livestock. It permanently identified who claimed ownership over another human being. Unlike scars from whippings, a brand could never truly disappear. It remained visible for the rest of a person's life. When Union troops entered New Orleans during the Civil War, they encountered groups of formerly enslaved people escaping nearby plantations. Among one group of 105 individuals, soldiers reported that at least 30 had been branded with hot irons. Some carried the marks across their chests or shoulders. Others bore them on their foreheads, where every passerby could immediately recognize them. These were not isolated acts committed by one unusually cruel owner. Military reports described branding as a routine practice on certain plantations. The soldiers themselves expressed horror as they documented what they witnessed. One of the most well-known survivors was Wilson Chin. His forehead carried 3 burned initials that represented the plantation owner who had claimed him as property. After escaping slavery, abolitionists photographed him. His portrait spread throughout the country, exposing the horrifying reality that countless Americans had refused to acknowledge. The branding iron itself was small, simple, cheap to manufacture. It fit comfortably inside one hand. Yet that ordinary piece of metal permanently transformed living people into merchandise marked with an owner's signature. It was not simply punishment. It was ownership burned into human flesh. Number 4. Child-sized shackles. Iron shackles formed the foundation of the entire slave trade. Before the auctions, before the plantations, before the forced labor, there were chains. Heavy iron restraints were locked around a person's ankles the moment they were captured. For many victims, those chains would remain a constant companion for months or even years. One discovery beneath the sea revealed something especially disturbing. Divers exploring the wreck of the slave ship Henrietta Marie, which sank around the year 1700, recovered more than 80 pairs of iron shackles from the ocean floor. Many appeared ordinary. Others did not. Several were far too small to fit an adult. They had been manufactured specifically for children. That single detail changes everything. Someone had measured the ankles of children. Someone had forged iron restraints designed to fit them perfectly. These were not makeshift devices. They were purpose-built products. During the Atlantic crossing, children were chained together exactly like adults. Many remained fastened in pairs beneath the deck, packed tightly into spaces designed to carry as many human beings as possible. Today, many of those recovered shackles are preserved inside museums in Florida. Visitors walk across reconstructed sections of the ship's wooden deck while the story of the Henrietta Marie unfolds around them. The creaking floorboards beneath their feet offer only the faintest suggestion of what thousands endured below. Those child-sized shackles remain among the strongest pieces of evidence proving that slavery spared no one. Age offered no protection. Childhood offered no mercy. Even the youngest victims entered the Atlantic crossing wearing iron made especially for them. Number 5. The anti-suicide net. Not every object aboard a slave ship was designed to inflict pain. Some existed for an equally disturbing purpose. They prevented people from choosing death. Large rope nets stretched along both sides of many slave ships from bow to stern. At first glance they resembled ordinary safety barriers. In reality they served a far darker function. Many Africans attempted to throw themselves into the ocean during the voyage. For countless captives, drowning seemed preferable to a lifetime of slavery. Many believed that death at sea would allow their spirits to return home to Africa. Slave traders understood this. So they surrounded the decks with heavy netting that trapped anyone attempting to leap overboard. Even suicide became nearly impossible. Former captives later described watching opportunity disappear behind those woven barriers. One survivor recalled that if he had managed to reach open water, he would have gladly jumped. The net denied him even that final decision. Nearby stood another structure known as the barricade. This heavy wooden wall divided the ship and protected armed crew members during revolts. Small cannons were mounted behind it, allowing sailors to fire directly into crowds of imprisoned Africans if resistance broke out. Every part of the ship had been carefully planned. Escape was prevented. Rebellion was crushed. Even death by one's own choice was deliberately taken away. The voyage across the Atlantic became a prison from which almost no path remained open. Number 6. The rawhide whip. Among every object associated with slavery, none became more infamous than the rawhide whip. Its appearance was deceptively simple. A wooden handle. A long strip of hardened leather. Yet in the hands of an overseer, it became one of the most feared instruments on any plantation. Unlike elaborate iron restraints, the whip required no complicated mechanism. Only strength. Only repetition. Every lash sliced across bare skin with enough force to tear flesh apart. Over time, repeated beatings left thick ridges of scar tissue that never truly disappeared. One original rawhide whip remains preserved inside the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. It serves as a reminder that one ordinary-looking object caused unimaginable suffering to countless lives. Its terrible effects became impossible for the public to ignore during the Civil War. A man who had escaped slavery reached a Union military camp seeking refuge. When doctors examined him, they uncovered a back covered from shoulders to waist in thick, twisted scars left by years of brutal lashings. Military photographers captured the image. Known today simply as Whipped Peter, the photograph spread rapidly through newspapers across the country. It required no explanation, no speech, no written testimony. The scars themselves told the story. Every raised line represented another punishment, another attempt to enforce obedience through pain. The leather whip eventually wore out. It could always be replaced. The scars it created remained for the rest of a person's life. Number 7. The sweat box. Some punishments relied on violence. Others relied on confinement. The sweat box combined both suffering and isolation into a single cruel experience. Usually built from wood or metal, the box was just large enough for one person to fit inside. Movement was almost impossible. Fresh air barely entered. Once the captive was locked inside, the box was left beneath the blazing sun. As the temperature climbed outside, the air trapped within became nearly unbearable. Heat built slowly. Breathing became difficult. Thirst became overwhelming. Every passing hour increased the torment. Unlike whipping, the sweat box often left few obvious injuries. That made it especially attractive to owners who viewed enslaved people as valuable property. The punishment weakened both body and mind without leaving the deep wounds that might reduce a person's market value. Long after slavery, similar confinement boxes continued appearing in prisons throughout the American South. Even military forces occasionally adopted the same method during the Civil War. Its cruelty required no constant supervision. No overseer needed to stand nearby. Once the door was locked, the punishment continued on its own. Darkness. Silence. Time became the executioner. The victim was left entirely alone with exhaustion, dehydration, and despair. It was torture designed to leave almost no visible evidence behind. Number 8. The thumbscrew. Not every instrument of torture was large. Some fit easily inside a pocket. The thumbscrew was one of them. It consisted of 2 metal rings joined by a threaded screw. The victim placed both thumbs inside the openings. Then the handle slowly turned. With each rotation, the rings tightened. Pressure increased steadily. Bones began to compress. Fingers swelled. Eventually, the crushing force became almost unbearable. Unlike the sudden pain of a whip, the thumbscrew delivered suffering gradually. Every movement of the screw offered another chance for the victim to surrender, or confess, or simply beg for relief. In 1848, the abolitionist newspaper The North Star described slave trading depots in Maryland as containing shelves stocked with thumbscrews, iron gags, and other devices intended specifically for punishment. Across the Atlantic, the same instrument became common in Brazil. There, it acquired an astonishingly gentle nickname. People called it anjinhos, meaning little angels. Nothing about it resembled an angel. Its iron jaws slowly crushed fingers until unbearable agony spread through both hands. The device itself dated back centuries. Originally developed in medieval Europe to force confessions, it eventually crossed the Atlantic and found new use within the slave system. Its appearance remained unchanged. Only its victims changed. The innocent name concealed one of the smallest and most agonizing tools ever created to inflict pain. Number 9. The cat-o'-nine-tails. An ordinary whip struck once with a single leather strap. The cat-o'-nine-tails multiplied that pain. Instead of one lash, 9 separate leather cords extended from the handle. Many ended in tightly tied knots. Each knot served a purpose. When the whip struck flesh, every strand landed independently. One swing became 9 separate blows. Each knot dug into the skin before ripping away, opening multiple wounds at the same instant. A single punishment could leave dozens of bleeding cuts across a person's back. Slave ships frequently relied on this weapon because it increased suffering without requiring greater effort from the person delivering the beating. The design itself was centuries old. Versions existed in ancient civilizations long before the Atlantic slave trade began. When maritime slavery demanded an efficient disciplinary weapon, sailors adopted it immediately. Its effectiveness came from simple mathematics. 9 straps inflicted far greater injury than 1. The same arm delivered the strike. The victim received many times the damage. Every improvement reflected careful planning. The goal was never merely punishment. The goal was maximum pain delivered as efficiently as possible. Number 10. The tin mask. Among all surviving artifacts from Brazilian slavery, few are as disturbing as the tin mask. Made from thin sheets of metal, the mask completely enclosed the face. Only a handful of tiny openings allowed enough air to breathe. It locked behind the head with a heavy padlock. Once secured, the person could neither remove it nor eat or drink without assistance. Some victims remained trapped inside these masks for days, their mouths sealed, their faces hidden, their thirst growing worse by the hour. The punishment often had nothing to do with violence or rebellion. Many received the mask simply for stealing sugar. Not sacks of sugar. Not valuable supplies. Only small pieces of sugar cane or raw sugar from plantations where they themselves had performed the exhausting labor of harvesting it. Hunger became a crime. The response was starvation. Historical records also reveal another horrifying purpose. Some enslaved people attempted to end their own lives by eating soil. Plantation owners believed the mask could prevent that as well. It denied food. It denied water. And it denied one final act of resistance. Rather than simply covering the face, the mask silenced every basic human need. Behind that sheet of metal remained a living person. Yet the device treated them as though even the simple act of eating required permission. Number 11, the powder arara. Among the most agonizing punishments ever documented during Brazilian slavery was a device known as the powder arara, or parrot's perch. Its construction was remarkably simple. A sturdy wooden or iron pole was passed behind the victim's knees while their wrists and ankles were tightly bound together. Once secured, the person was suspended from the pole in a tightly folded position, completely unable to straighten their body or shift their weight. At first, the posture merely felt uncomfortable. Within minutes, it became unbearable. Every muscle strained against itself. The shoulders burned. The knees throbbed. Blood circulation slowed as the body's own weight pressed relentlessly against the joints. With the head hanging downward, dizziness and nausea quickly followed. Hours passed far more slowly than the pain itself. Unlike machines that relied on gears or complicated mechanisms, the powder arara required almost nothing. A single pole. A few lengths of rope. Gravity did the rest. As time wore on, the victim's own body became the instrument of torture. This punishment survived well beyond the era of slavery. Centuries later, the same method would reappear during darker periods of Brazilian history, proving how cruelty often outlives the systems that first created it. The simplicity of the device made it especially terrifying. No blades, no fire, no iron spikes, only an unnatural position that forced the human body to slowly turn against itself. Sometimes the greatest torment required almost no machinery at all. Number 12, the gibbet. Death did not always end punishment. For some, it marked the beginning of an even darker warning. The gibbet was an iron cage carefully shaped to resemble the human body. After execution, the victim's corpse was placed inside the metal frame instead of being buried. The cage was then suspended high above the ground where everyone passing below could see it. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. The body slowly decayed inside the iron prison. In parts of the Caribbean, this punishment was often reserved for enslaved people accused of organizing revolts or resisting plantation authority. The intention extended far beyond the individual who had died. Every living person forced to walk beneath that hanging corpse received the same message. This is what happens to those who resist. The cage itself became a weapon of psychological terror. It punished entire communities without touching them. Historical collections, including those once displayed by the Institute of Jamaica, preserved examples of these cages alongside branding irons and restraints. Together they revealed how every stage of slavery, from capture to death, could become a public spectacle. The gibbet did not simply imprison the dead. It haunted the living. Number 13, the iron muzzle. At first glance, the iron muzzle resembled the mask already described, but its purpose was slightly different. Rather than enclosing the entire face, this device surrounded the lower jaw with a rigid iron framework covered by a grated metal cage. The eyes remained uncovered. The mouth did not. Whoever wore it could breathe through narrow openings but could neither eat freely nor speak normally. Its design closely resembled the muzzle placed upon a dangerous animal. That similarity was intentional. One of the most important first-hand descriptions comes from Olaudah Equiano, who experienced slavery himself before eventually purchasing his freedom. In his autobiography, he referred to the device simply as an iron muzzle. His choice of words carried enormous meaning. A muzzle belongs on an animal. Applying one to a human being deliberately stripped away dignity and identity. One surviving example remains preserved in London's Sir John Soane's Museum. Visitors who stand before it often notice how ordinary the object appears until they imagine wearing it. The iron bars did more than cover a mouth. They attempted to erase a voice. Every time the muzzle closed, it silently declared that the person beneath it deserved no more freedom than livestock. Number 14. The tread wheel. Imagine climbing an endless staircase that never allows you to reach the top. Now imagine being forced to continue until your legs collapse beneath you. That was the purpose of the tread wheel. The enormous wooden wheel contained a series of steps that continuously rotated beneath the prisoners standing upon it. Victims climbed endlessly while holding onto a support bar above their heads. Stopping was impossible. Missing a step meant being dragged downward as the wheel continued turning beneath them. Shins scraped against rough timber. Skin peeled away. Muscles failed from complete exhaustion. The punishment became especially common in Jamaican houses of correction, where enslaved people could spend hours trapped upon the machine. British abolitionists later published engravings exposing these brutal conditions to the wider public. One official investigation produced an especially disturbing discovery. The governor of Jamaica himself condemned the continued whipping of women inside these correction facilities. Despite his protests, little changed. The wheel continued turning. What had originally been designed to grind grain had become a machine that slowly ground down human bodies instead. Every rotation stole a little more strength. Every hour demanded another impossible step. Eventually, the wheel accomplished exactly what its creators intended. It broke both the body and the spirit. Number 15. The Palmatoria. Compared with iron collars and heavy chains, the Palmatoria appeared almost harmless. It was nothing more than a rounded wooden paddle, often pierced with several holes. Yet appearances were dangerously misleading. Throughout Brazilian slavery, this inexpensive instrument became one of the most common punishment tools on plantations. Blows landed across the palms of the hands or the soles of the feet. Again, and again, and again. The openings carved into the paddle were not decorative. They reduced air resistance, allowing each strike to land with greater speed and greater force. Bruises quickly spread beneath the skin. Swelling followed. Even simple tasks became agonizing afterward. Perhaps the most unsettling part of the Palmatoria is how long it survived after slavery officially ended. The same paddle later appeared in rural schools throughout Brazil. Children struck across the hands often referred to the punishment simply as receiving bolos.